Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial has been going on for what feels like an eternity, and it has sharply divided people in the country, because of course it did. Everything divides people in the country, with individuals either siding with Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. And based on the several days of testimony, the weeks of testimony at this point, I think it's pretty clear that both of them are guilty of contributing to an incredibly toxic and abusive relationship. So I want to make my case here, because anyone who thinks that Amber Heard is totally innocent is wrong. Anyone who thinks that Johnny Depp is entirely innocent is also wrong. Now in this case, Johnny Depp is suing Amber Heard, his now ex-wife, who he was with for several years. He's suing for defamation, an incredibly difficult thing to prove in court. However, he's given his best shot. His legal team is pretty, I think, effective in the arguments that they're making, and they have provided some evidence indicating that Amber Heard was also both physically and psychologically abusive toward him in their relationship. Now, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's relationship began more than a decade ago and eventually devolved into what appears to be a pretty toxic marriage. The couple split in 2016, but have continued to battle in court over this op-ed that Amber Heard had written for the Washington Post in 2018, in which she described surviving domestic violence. She didn't mention Depp by name, but it's obviously clear that she was referring to Johnny Depp. Now, in the op-ed, Heard writes this: "I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out." Now, Depp is suing for $50 million in damages and denies ever being physically violent with Heard. Heard is countersuing for $100 million and claims that she was only ever violent with Depp in self-defense or defense of her younger sister. So I actually want to skip ahead right now and go to the first video, because this was a piece of evidence that was presented by Johnny Depp and his legal team. And it was evidence that showed that Amber Heard was willing to start a physical altercation, to start it, okay? And I think it's an important piece of evidence. Let's take a listen.
I said to Travis, I said, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
You told me to do it. You told me to. You said, go do that.
I said, no, tell him what just happened.
And I lied.
And that you punched me in the thing. And
you figured it out.
And you said, no, I didn't. What the are you talking about? And I watched you lie. And then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights. You've been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No. Have a close
you didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I'm hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
Other things that were revealed in this defamation trial was that, she allegedly defecated on Johnny Depp's side of the bed as retaliation. Some pretty horrendous stuff. But I also want to get back to what Johnny Depp did and the evidence that Amber Heard has provided. We'll get to that in a second. But Cenk, I want to give you an opportunity.
So look, this is tough. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's got opinions, and sometimes the opinions are related to the case, and oftentimes it's related to everybody's own personal experiences, right? So if you've ever been abused as a woman, you're gonna have a certain reaction to what Johnny Depp did, right? If you've been abused as a man, you're gonna have a certain reaction to what Amber did. And maybe some of the abuse is physical, some of it, a lot of it is psychological. For the people at home I'm talking about, right? And then you're gonna make certain assumptions about those folks based on what happened to you rather than what happened in their case. Okay, so that makes it super sensitive. So if you say, for example, both sides are bad, both sides hate you, right?
Right.
For their own reasons about their own lives, right? And if you make a relative judgment, people are gonna hate you even more. But I'm about to do that later in this story, okay? In fact, I'll start it right now. So I think both did terrible things, but Amber Heard was vicious. And so she hit him, you heard it on the tape, no question. She threw several vodka bottles at him, severed his finger, and psychologically deeply abusive to a guy who was clearly had troubles, right? And you can blame him for his troubles, or you can say it was weakness, depending on your perspective, etc. And maybe I blame him for what he did, okay? But if you think Amber Heard is completely innocent, you live on a different planet than I do.
Right, and I don't think she's completely innocent at all. And again, it's based on the evidence that's been presented during the trial. And I'm not ashamed to admit that while I'm cooking, I like to have the trial on in the background to listen to what's been going on. And so I have a pretty good grasp on the evidence that's been presented and all of that. But she also presented evidence in the form of photos showing her injuries based on these physical altercations. For instance, she presented evidence to the court, a photo of a bruise on her face, and claimed that he pulled her hair, screamed at her, and hit her repeatedly. During the entirety of our relationship, Johnny Depp has been verbally and physically abusive to me, Heard said in a sworn declaration at the time. But she also said she lived in fear of Depp, saying that he had a short fuse and terrorized her. And he also had, he has a history of addiction that has come out throughout this trial. In 2018, she wrote in this op-ed, and in 2020 audio, I should say, Heard allegedly saying that she hit Depp and then published online. So we had you guys listen to that, so you know about that evidence. Now, Heard's former assistant, Kate James, testified in court this April that when she asked Heard for a pay raise, Heard spat in her face, backing up claims that Heard could be violent. Now later, a libel trial is held in the United Kingdom, okay, over the British newspaper The Sun calling Depp a wife beater. Depp sues both executive editor Dan Wooten and The Sun's parent company News Group newspapers. Depp's ex-partner Vanessa Paradis defends Depp by submitting a statement saying the actor is the farthest thing from a violent person. I'm just giving you a rundown of the type of evidence that's being presented. Depp also claims that Heard put her, I mentioned this earlier, put her own fecal matter in the bed and was physically violent toward him. In November of 2020, a judge actually ended up siding with The Sun. So he lost that lawsuit in the UK. Now, finally, we reach April of this year, which is when the defamation trial began in Virginia, okay? Attorneys for Depp lay out the evidence for Heard's alleged abuse, while Heard's lawyers focus on Depp's past drug and alcohol use, text messages and recordings, claiming that Depp perpetrated the violence. Now, Depp addressed Heard's allegations about substance abuse, saying he began taking his mother's nerve pills at age 11 and self-medicated with substances over the years as a coping mechanism for trauma. He denied ever having become out of control while under the influence. But during the trial, a video Heard recorded actually showed Depp in a tirade, drunkenly smashing cabinets and all of that, to kind of prove that he would get violent when he was under the influence. So let's take a look at that evidence.
We're not even fighting this morning. All I did was say sorry.
Did something happen to you this morning? That's crazy. Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy.
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this going. You got this going?
I just started it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
So there's more, there's a lot more. Other things that came out in the case, in another audio recording during the conversation about the Australian accent, Heard appears to mock the idea that Depp might position himself as a victim. You can tell people it was a fair fight and then see what the jury and judge thinks, Heard says. Tell the world, Johnny, tell them, Johnny Depp, I, a man, am a victim too of domestic violence. It's a fair fight, and see how many people believe or side with you. And to be honest, a lot of people, from what I've seen online at least, seem to be siding with him in that she appears to have been abusive toward him as well.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you my theory as to why people are reacting that way. Because as you see him, knock the phone away and stuff, it's not like he didn't partake in anything physical. It looks like he did to some degree, okay? And he keeps saying he doesn't have addiction issues. No, he clearly has addiction issues, right? So why the difference in how people are perceiving Heard and Depp? And that includes me. The reason is he looks like, and you could say, hey, it's making an excuse for him, and I hear you, and it's a legitimate point, okay? But he looks like he's struggling. He's got weakness. He keeps going back to pills and alcohol, ice cream's falling all over him, etc. Meanwhile, she's taking pictures, she's recording everything nonstop, getting him on tape. I mean, they were only married 18 months. And she's goading him, oh yeah, go public with me beating you and see how that turns out for you. Well, I mean, it didn't turn out well for anybody. And remember, he took this to trial. If he thought, and maybe he's an idiot, and that's totally possible, oh, I beat her all the time and she was just doing self-defense, but if I expose that to the whole world, I'll win? That seems less likely. And so from him, bad actions are coming from both of them. In terms of bad intent, it's screaming through from Amber Heard. And by the way, and I'm not excusing what he did. If you do bad things, then you have bad intent, at least to some degree, okay?
Yeah.
But I think calling it even is also not fair.
You know, look, that's the thing, I don't know. I don't know if it's even, right? Because, she has provided evidence of her like injuries, bruises, and all of that. But we weren't there and we don't know the details of like how it started. Did she, and look, there has been evidence, obviously, and we presented it to you guys right now, showing that she has started physical altercations, right? So I don't know for sure if he has started physical altercations or if she has gone out of her way to like spark it. You know what I'm saying? And he tried to defend himself. We don't know.
I want to be clear though. If he actually caused the bruises, that is a massive problem. That's not a little problem, okay?
Yeah.
And we cannot have that kind of domestic violence. Then I would say, yeah, they're both equally at fault, right? But she recorded everything. And so she has the pictures of the bruises. And by the way, if you're getting abused, you should record things, okay? But if you start the fight and then start the recording, that's a completely different issue, okay? But it's so hard to tell. And so I guess we're gonna leave it up to the jury. And by the way, the jury's not gonna decide who's right and who's wrong. They're gonna decide whether she defamed him. That's a completely different thing.
And to your point, and I said this earlier, defamation suits are incredibly difficult to win. Like if you're the one bringing the suit. And honestly, like watching it, it's such a painful process to go through. And the fact that he's putting himself through it must mean he genuinely believes he's been defamed. So that goes to your point. One final video I want to get to, which you had alluded to earlier, Cenk. So he lost like the tip of his finger and he testified about that incident. This is the last video, E4, let's take a look.
I stood up and I walked behind the bar and there was a larger bottle of vodka, the kind with the handle, on it. I grabbed that and I went and I sat in my seat again. I opened the bottle and I poured myself a shot, drank it. Ms. Heard was flinging insults left, right, and center, and she then grabbed that bottle and threw that at me. Heat. I felt heat and I felt as if something were dripping down my hand, and then I looked down and realized that the tip of my finger had been severed.
There was like photo evidence of that presented in the trial as well.
Yeah, and then they used that against him too. They said, oh, he wrote in his own blood and that's crazy. Yeah, but severing his finger is a little crazier. So you don't get to criticize what I do with my own blood after you caused the blood in the first place. So there's some things are clear here, okay, and other things are opaque. Now let me clarify one more time because I'm sure that the video will later be used by my opponents to lie about me, including the New York Times. So if he did the bruises, not only should he lose the trial, he should go to jail if he's committing violence and he's starting the violence and hitting her. That is super obvious, okay? And that part we don't know. The violence she started is clear because she admits it on tape and and the vodka incident where his finger is severed is clear, right? So her saying like, I am the lone victim here and I didn't do anything except, start so many of these fights. I mean, physically, anybody can start a verbal fight and etc. No, this is a very complicated case. And so don't jump to conclusions on either side. And it doesn't mean that, by the way, that Johnny Depp drinking and then taking the phone away from her and the things that we see and doing that in a physical way is okay just because he has an addiction problem. It isn't okay. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.